In order for us to be effective queen breeders, we have to have and control our drones in the area. That way we have a better chance of breeding the type of bee we want. In this video, we're going to go over the means at which the colony uses to control their drone production. I'm often asked who's in charge of the drones. Is it the workers or is it the queen? And as it turns out, as you can see in this chart, it is both. This chart shows who does what and when and how that affects how many drones are in the colony. As you can see, worker shows up at step 1, they make the cells. Workers show up at step 2, they decide to either prep the cells for eggs or fill them with resources. Step 3, the queen actually makes the choice. She chooses to either lay a drone egg in the cell or not to. And then again, we're back to the workers who have to actually raise that egg into an adult. And finally, the workers are responsible for caring for the adult drones. Now we're going to look at each of these steps in more detail. All right, let's start at step 1, where the workers decide to build drone comb or worker comb. Now, they will build more drone comb in the spring and early summer than any other time of the year. So time of year has an impact on when they build comb. As with all wax production, the colony requires an influx of nectar. And that is true with drone production. So colonies are more likely to build drone combs when there's plenty of resources coming in. So resource availability plays a role in drone comb production. Okay? Now, believe it or not, the presence of drone comb inhibits the production of drone comb. So there's some kind of feedback loop involved wherein the workers decide that they have enough drone comb and they won't build any more, even if it's the right time of year and there are plenty of resources coming in. So there's a feedback loop. And this is going to be important for us later on as we attempt to manipulate our colonies to build drone combs. Okay, and finally, I know you've heard it said that the 10 to 20% of the colony are drones. That's not true. What that statement really says is 10 to 20% of brood comb is drone comb. However, only 5 to 10% of the adult population are actually drones. So there's a disconnect between the number of drone comb and the number of adult drones in the population. And that is probably due to this feedback loop. Just because a cell is built to be a drone cell doesn't mean that the queen gets to lay an egg in it. Rather, the workers decide by either varnishing the cell, preparing it for an egg, or they can fill it with a nectar resource. So what makes the worker decide whether to varnish the cell in preparation for an egg or to fill it with resources? Again, time of year plays a heavy role in whether she will do that. Again, in the spring and the early summer, that is when they're more likely to prep cells for the reception of an egg. Later in the year, especially during fall, they will start to fill those cells with nectar resources. Now, step 3, the queen gets to finally do something. She lays the eggs, which as you can see is very important. Now, whether she decides to lay an egg into a drone cell or not depends again on time of year. Just like with the production of drone cells, time that she will lay eggs is the spring and early summer. She is least likely to lay drone eggs in the fall. Also, as we've seen with the production of drone cells, resource influx plays an important role on whether or not she will lay drone eggs, both nectar and pollen. So resources are very important to determining whether she will lay eggs or not. And finally, the presence of drone brood in the colony will prevent her from laying drone eggs. So there's another feedback loop, just like with the workers. So time of year, spring and early summer, resources must be coming in very heavily, and the feedback loop, the presence of drone larvae and pupa in the colony determines or affects whether she will lay a drone egg into a cell. Now we're back to the workers in step 4. The workers have to care for the developing larva. Now, Believe it or not, drone survival is variable across the year, but it is lowest during the fall. So again, time of year plays a role in drone survival. They're more likely to survive to adulthood, spring, early summer. Very least likely to survive to adulthood, if they're even laid, in the fall. Now, another thing that determines whether drones survive or not is, again, resource inflow. They don't have the resources they need to raise drones. They will not raise drones. And if resources get low, they will abort the drones first. So resources are very important. And there is also a feedback loop, just like we've seen in other steps. The presence of drone pupa affects whether they will raise drone larvae to adulthood. Finally, we get to step 5, where the workers can choose to either care for or evict adult drones. As we all know, they're most likely to evict adult drones in the fall, and they're most likely to care for the adult drones in the early spring and the summer. Again, resource availability plays a role in whether they will care for adult drones. But for the most part, once a drone gets to be an adult, he's got a pretty good chance of living the rest of his life. So, how does all this biology inform our decisions about how to create drone-right colonies? All we have to remember is 3 things. Time of year. We want to attempt to make our drone-right colonies in the spring and early summer. They need to be a large population. And obviously they need to queen. We need to feed them plenty of sucrose syrup. That mimics plenty of resources coming in. And then finally, we do not need to attempt to manipulate their numbers. Doing this may trigger the feedback loop, and your colonies may actually stop producing drones. So to summarize, make your drone-right colonies in the early summer and spring. Make sure they are queen-right and have a large population. Make sure there's plenty of resources available either through the environment or you are providing them sucrose syrup. And finally, do not attempt to manipulate drone numbers or you may trigger the feedback loop. If you have any questions, post them in the forums. We can talk more about this.